You guys seem to enjoy the previous ChatGPT video I put on the channel where I got the AI to fantasy book a logical WWF vs WCW pay-per-view in 1998, and I thought the AI did a good job of making a pay-per-view that fans would have actually wanted to see. What interested me more though than the booking decisions were the decisions it made around how the event came to be and the logistics of booking such a big pay-per-view. It's easy for anyone to throw together a match card and pick winners and losers, but you need to think a bit more in regards to why certain things happen and the reasons behind certain decisions. The way ChatGPT can explain its reasoning is what I feel is its overall strong point. And so today I want to give it some problems or some highly discussed topics to see how it would rebook or fix certain issues. WCW is a prime candidate for some problem fixing, in particular WCW during the Monday Night War. And seeing as I'm covering the whole war on the channel, I thought it would be a good idea to ask the AI about some moments, rivalries and matches on the WCW side to see if we can come up with better solutions. So let's see how ChatGPT would fix World Championship Wrestling during the Monday Night War. A lot of people point to the nWo storyline as the main reason for WCW's downfall. The faction and storyline was white hot during mid-1996 and throughout 1997, but there was never an end of the storyline, and this meant the angle would go absolutely nowhere as time went on. Here's the question I presented to ChatGPT. You're going to fantasy book an alternative and better ending to the nWo storyline. Fans say that WCW didn't know when to end the nWo angle and the faction stayed around way longer than it should have. I want you to create a new, better ending to the nWo storyline, and that includes ending the nWo Black and White, nWo Wolfpack, and nWo Elite. You must be as detailed as possible in describing your booking scenario. Let me know what happens to members of the nWo after the storyline ends, and let me know how it affects WCW as a whole. Again, be very detailed. And here's the answer ChatGPT gave us. Just to be transparent, I'll also point out that it was giving me a lot of errors when answering. I had to ask twice on most occasions, but it did eventually give me an answer when prompted again. This was using the GPT-4 model. Setting: WCW Starrcade 1999. Background: the nWo has long dominated WCW, but the faction's influence has waned with infighting and splintering into separate groups. The fans are growing wary of the nWo's continued presence, and it's time to wrap up the storyline in a satisfying and dramatic fashion. In the months leading up to Starrcade 99, the nWo factions, Black and White, Wolfpack and Elite, engage in a bitter rivalry, with each group trying to prove that they're the true nWo. The WCW World Heavyweight Champion, Sting, who's been at odds with the nWo since its inception, issues a challenge to the leaders of each faction: Hollywood Hulk Hogan for the nWo Black and White, Kevin Nash, nWo Wolfpack, and Bret Hart, nWo Elite. Okay. A fatal four-way elimination match for the title at Starrcade. The catch is, if any nWo member loses, their faction must disband forever. So the AI's assumed quite a lot here, and it's made its own scenario where the Black and White, the Wolfpack and the Elite are three separate functioning factions within WCW in December of 1999. That's not great, is it? December 99 is way too late to end this storyline, so already I feel it's screwed up a bit here. I do like the idea of a fatal four-way with everything on the line, and I do like the possibility of one remaining faction if that faction's leader can win the match, but I'll be honest, I was expecting a bit more. The match. Sting, Hogan, Nash and Hart put on an incredible display of athleticism and storytelling in the ring. As the match progresses, the other nWo faction members interfere, trying to give their leaders an advantage. This leads to an all-out brawl between the factions on the outside, while the four competitors inside the ring continue their battle. After a grueling match, Hogan and Nash are both eliminated, leaving Sting and Hart as the last men standing. The nWo factions, realizing their existence is on the line, join forces and storm to the ring to attack Sting. However, WCW wrestlers led by Ric Flair, Diamond Dallas Page and Goldberg come to Sting's aid, resulting in a chaotic battle. Amidst the chaos, Sting and Hart are left alone in the ring. Sting hits a Scorpion Death Drop on Hart and covers him for the pin, successfully defending his title and marking the end of all nWo factions. The aftermath. With the nWo storyline concluded, WCW undergoes a rebirth. The company focuses on the talented roster and engaging storylines, giving the fans what they've been longing for. I loved the way the match was booked. All the nWo factions coming together when they realize it could be the end is a pretty great idea. And the core WCW guys running down to create a giant brawl is also kind of fitting for a WCW main event. Good stuff. The fate of former nWo members. Hollywood Hulk Hogan. After a brief hiatus, Hogan returns to WCW as a face, embracing his classic Hulkamania persona. He has a few more high-profile matches before retiring and transitioning into an ambassador role for the company. Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. Nash and Hall form a tag team known as the Outsiders, becoming a dominant force in the tag team division. Alright. They eventually capture the WCW Tag Team Championships and help elevate the division. Bret Hart. After a brief feud with Sting, Hart turns face and becomes a mentor to younger talent. He occasionally wrestles, but mostly focuses on helping WCW's next generation of stars. Other nWo members. Many of the former nWo members either form new alliances or pursue singles careers. Some, like Scott Steiner and Buff Bagwell, find success, while others fade into the background. The impact on WCW. With the end of the nWo storyline, WCW experiences a resurgence in popularity. The company refocuses on showcasing its talented roster, leading to increased ratings and pay-per-view buy rates. WCW's decision to end the nWo era ushers in a new exciting period for the company, one that fans will remember fondly for years to come. So Hogan goes back to the red and yellow, Nash and Hall form the Outsiders again, and Bret helps young talent. A few nWo guys find success, others disappear, and WCW ends up better for it. I like the match concept and I like how the match itself was booked, but I still think Starrcade 99 was way too late for this to happen. Starrcade 98 could have been better. I'm also not into how ChatGPT made 3 nWo stables with 3 different leaders that all existed at the same time, but I think that's more to do with the prompts that I used. I maybe shouldn't have mentioned the Wolfpack or the Elite at all. A sore point for a lot of fans centre around how Bret Hart debuted in WCW and how the company didn't capitalise on Bret's controversial departure from WWF. Let's see how ChatGPT would go about bringing his excellency to WCW. Setting: WCW Monday Nitro, December 29th, 1997. The show opens with Tony Schiavone hyping up a major announcement and surprise for the fans tonight. Throughout the night, WCW superstars are shown backstage discussing and speculating on the big surprise. Main event match: Diamond Dallas Page vs Hollywood Hulk Hogan for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. As the main event match is reaching its climax, the nWo members, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash and Buff Bagwell, storm the ring and attack DDP, causing a disqualification. The nWo begins a brutal beatdown on DDP. So this happens after Starrcade 97, but I'm going to step in and fix something here. I want you to ignore the fact that Hogan's the world champion and just pretend Sting still won the belt at Starrcade, because it'll help the rest make a lot more sense. We shouldn't have to make changes, so it's another little slip up from ChatGPT, but for the sake of making this booking decent, let's just pretend that Sting's the world champion. Suddenly, the lights go out and a video package airs on the Titantron. The video shows highlights from Bret Hart's illustrious career in WWF. Alright, that wouldn't happen. With a voiceover from Bret himself, promising to change the landscape of professional wrestling forever. The lights come back on and Bret Hart's iconic music hits. The crowd erupts as the Hitman makes his way to the ring. Bret enters the ring and immediately starts taking out the nWo members one by one. The remaining nWo members retreat, leaving Hogan in the ring with Bret. Hart locks in the sharpshooter on Hogan, forcing him to tap out, but eventually he releases the hold as WCW security and officials enter the ring to break up the chaos. The following week, Bret Hart comes to the ring to address his actions. He explains that he came to WCW to stand up for what's right, to restore honour and dignity to professional wrestling. He calls out the nWo for tarnishing the legacy of WCW and vows to put an end to their reign of terror. Bret announces his intentions to fight for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship and promises to bring back the prestige it once had. He ends the promo by saying, "I'm not just the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. I'm the future of WCW." Remember, in reality, Bret Hart debuted before Starrcade to announce he was going to officiate an Eric Bischoff vs Larry Zbyszko match at the pay-per-view. So, I mean, the scenario ChatGPT came up with, in my opinion, is a million times better. Bret absolutely should have came in and turned everything upside down. Bret's first feud is with Hollywood Hulk Hogan, setting up a high-stakes match at WCW's next pay-per-view event, Sold Out 98. In the weeks leading up to the event, Hart systematically takes out nWo members in singles matches, showcasing his skills and proving his dominance. It Sold Out, Bret defeats Hogan in a hard-fought match, solidifying his status as the top contender for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. Bret then moves on to a program with the current champion, Sting. Their rivalry culminates in a legendary match at Super Brawl 8, where Bret emerges victorious, capturing the WCW World Heavyweight Championship and cementing his legacy in the world of pro wrestling. It's a lot, and I mean a lot better than what we got on TV. The only thing I don't like about the booking is the fact that it's kinda detrimental to Sting, who was still extremely popular during this time period. It's pretty telling that an AI can book Bret's debut better. One thing ChatGPT isn't constrained by is the backstage politics and general bullshittery that was going on in WCW at the time, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because it has more freedom. It's a bad thing because it isn't very realistic. The next question ties into the last question quite a bit, so completely forget about Bret's debut. We want to look at Starrcade 97 next, the biggest pay-per-view in WCW history and a show that featured a catastrophic blunder in the main event. How would ChatGPT fix the messy ending to Sting vs Hollywood Hogan? Let's find out. So the question, Starrcade 97 had a bad ending. Confusion amongst the referee, Hogan, Sting and whoever else discussed the match backstage caused the main event to fall flat. Starrcade 97 is seen as a bad point in WCW, with some considering it the night WCW began to go downhill in terms of creativity, popularity and overall dominance in comparison to WWF. You're going to fantasy book a new ending to the Sting vs Hogan match in detail. You're going to make the ending better, and it also has to be memorable. As the crowd eagerly await the culmination of the Sting vs Hollywood Hogan match at Starrcade 1997, the atmosphere is electric. The storyline leading up to this encounter has been expertly crafted, with Sting embracing the role of a silent, brooding vigilante and Hogan as the treacherous leader of the nWo faction. The stage is set for a grand finale that will not only erase the original disappointment but also create a moment that will be etched in wrestling history. As the match begins, both Hogan and Sting demonstrate their wrestling prowess, trading punches, kicks and slams with neither competitor willing to give an inch. The match is a perfect balance of technical wrestling and high drama as the two titans battle back and forth. Midway through the match, nWo members led by Kevin Nash and Scott Hall make their way to ringside to show their support for Hogan. However, just as they're about to interfere, the WCW locker room, led by Diamond Dallas Page, Lex Luger and the Giant, charge down the ramp to even the odds, effectively neutralizing the nWo threat. As the action continues in the ring, Hogan manages to get the upper hand on Sting, hitting him with a brutal leg drop. A brutal leg drop. However, instead of going for the pin, Hogan arrogantly taunts the crowd, which gives Sting the opportunity to recover. Hogan goes for another leg drop, but this time Sting rolls out of the way, causing Hogan to crash and burn. Capitalizing on the situation, Sting locks in the Scorpion Deathlock, wrenching back with all his might. The crowd's on their feet and the tension's palpable as Hogan appears to be in excruciating pain. Sensing the end is near, referee Nick Patrick encourages Hogan to submit, but just as Hogan's about to tap out, he manages to reach the ropes, forcing Sting to break the hold. Frustration sets in for Sting, but he knows he's close to victory. He climbs the turnbuckle and he signals for the Stinger Splash. As he leaps through the air, the crowd holds its breath, but Hogan miraculously moves out of the way, causing Sting to crash into the turnbuckle. Seizing the opportunity, Hogan quickly tries to pin Sting with his feet on the ropes for leverage. However, as Nick Patrick begins the count, Bret the Hitman Hart comes running down to the ring. He pulls Patrick out and he prevents the tainted victory. Hart, in his referee shirt, takes over as the official and the match continues. Sting, driven by the injustice and renewed determination, starts making a comeback, hitting Hogan with a series of devastating moves. With Hogan reeling, Sting delivers a crushing Scorpion Death Drop and he covers him for the pin. Bret Hart counts 1, 2, 3 and the crowd erupts in unison. The WCW locker room empties out as Sting is hoisted onto the shoulders of his fellow wrestlers, finally victorious over Hollywood Hogan and the nWo. The event ends with Sting and Hart shaking hands in a show of mutual respect as pyrotechnics fill the arena. This new ending not only restores Sting's triumph, but also solidifies his status as WCW's savior, creating a moment that will be remembered and celebrated for years to come. What can I say here? It's so simplistic, but it's also better than what we got. I've often envisioned Starrcade ending with Sting winning clean and Bret Hart debuting immediately afterwards, just standing on the entranceway as the WCW locker room celebrate with Sting inside the ring. But this works just as well. There's no questionable finish, and ChatGPT's booking also keeps the relationships intact in terms of Bret helping Sting and Bret refereeing the final moments of the match. ChatGPT does have its quirks, but as a wrestling booker, it's doing a pretty good job. Right, it's time to get silly. Remember Glacier and the Blood Runs Cold storyline? Yeah, how could you forget? ChatGPT has some far-fetched ideas to fix that angle, and what we end up doing here is jumping deep into the world of fan fiction. The question: in WCW there was an infamous storyline named Blood Runs Cold. Blood Runs Cold featured wrestlers Glacier, Mortis and Wrath, and Ernest Miller. The characters were inspired by Mortal Kombat characters, however the angle itself never really got off the ground due to delays and a heavy focus placed on the nWo storyline. I want you to reimagine Blood Runs Cold and give it a proper start, middle and end. Include details about promos, matches and other wrestlers who could potentially fit into the angle. You can also debut new characters if you wish. Be very detailed, and remember to give a conclusion. The storyline begins with a series of vignettes airing on WCW television, highlighting the origin stories of the Blood Runs Cold characters. These vignettes establish the mythos and define the rivalry between Glacier, inspired by Sub-Zero, and Mortis, inspired by Scorpion. I would have thought it was Reptile, but okay. The vignettes reveal that Glacier, Mortis and Wrath, inspired by Shao Kahn, are from an ancient secret society of warriors who have been at odds for centuries. They are now entering the world of WCW to settle their scores and prove who is the ultimate warrior. Ernest the Cat Miller is introduced as a defector from their society who now seeks to prevent their dominance in WCW. Already, the AI has given us much more backstory than WCW ever did. The secret society thing gives these guys a reason to fight each other on television. I know they went with the Vandenberg angle in WCW and Vandenberg wanting to collect rare oddities, but again, ChatGPT's done a better job of making something that sounds more interesting. Things do get a bit crazy next though, have a listen. Glacier makes his debut in the ring with a series of impressive victories, showcasing his martial arts skills and ice-based powers. During his matches, he's constantly taunted by Mortis and Wrath, who interfere in his bouts and cut promos on him. Ernest Miller allies himself with Glacier to fend off Mortis and Wrath, but struggles with his own loyalty to his former brethren. Meanwhile, other wrestlers are drawn into the storyline. Diamond Dallas Page and Chris Jericho are revealed to have connections to the secret society, with DDP being a former member and Jericho seeking to prove himself worthy of joining. This leads to DDP mentoring Jericho as they both try to navigate the increasingly dangerous Blood Runs Cold landscape. What the hell does that mean? A new character, Inferno, inspired by Mortal Kombat's Liu Kang, is introduced as a counterpart to Glacier. Inferno's a young, agile wrestler with fire-based powers who initially feuds with Glacier, but they ultimately form an alliance to take on Mortis and Wrath. DDP and Jericho getting involved it's something for sure. I like the idea of Inferno. It might be gimmick infringement on the Disco Inferno, but sure, just get Glenn to play the character. At this point, anything goes. The AI then spat out a few random matches, but one of the matches it talked about was a War Games encounter. Team Glacier, featuring Glacier, Miller, Inferno, DDP and Chris Jericho, against Mortis, Wrath, and 3 newly introduced members of the Secret Society. I wanted to know more about these mysterious characters and who could play them, and this is what we've got. Shadow Strike, who was based on Noob Saibot. Dean Malenko could portray the character of Shadow Strike, known for his technical prowess and no-nonsense demeanour. Malenko's in-ring skills and ability to adapt to different styles would make him a great fit for the shadow-manipulating assassin. With his serious approach to wrestling and his exceptional talent, he could bring the character to life and make it a credible threat in the Blood Runs Cold storyline. Lady Viper, who was based on Melina. Daphne could take on the role of Lady Viper. Daphne was known for her distinct look and captivating presence, which would lend well to the seductive yet deadly nature of Lady Viper. Additionally, her background in wrestling and willingness to take risks in the ring could help her portray the agile and ruthless character. Titan, who was based on Goro. Scott Norton would be a suitable choice doing Body Titan. Norton, already a powerhouse in WCW, had the size and strength to convincingly play the enforcer of Mortis and Raph's team. His experience as a successful wrestler both in the US and Japan would help him portray the monstrous and imposing Titan character effectively. And check this out, this is how ChatGPT would end the Blood Runs Cold storyline. The storyline reaches its conclusion with a high-stakes match between Glacier and Mortis in a frozen hell match, a variation of Hell in a Cell but with the cell covered in ice, making it much more difficult to escape and adding an element of danger to the combatants. Glacier would ultimately defeat Mortis in a brutal, hard-hitting match, putting an end to their centuries-old rivalry. After the match, the characters from the Blood Runs Cold storyline are seen reconciling their differences, with DDP and Jericho fully severing their ties to the secret society. A cell covered in ice. This does lean into that kinda Dungeon of Doom 1995 nonsense, but could you imagine a Hell in a Cell frozen in ice? Dangerous icicles falling from the roof, Glacier's blue laser lights and snow falling down throughout the match, the ring ropes frozen solid and guys slipping around the ring in turnbuckles? Count me in. It sounds so bad that it actually sounds good. The final question then, Vince Russo. What could Vince Russo do to save WCW? He tried, his ideas were met with negativity, so what would ChatGPT do to save Russo and save WCW? Here's the question. Not many people enjoyed Vince Russo's time in WCW. Some of his ideas and storylines fell flat, and his style of cross TV didn't work well in World Championship Wrestling. I want you to come up with some storylines that could have saved Vince Russo, some new ideas and some new angles that could have made his run a success. Be as detailed as possible, and remember, you're competing with the WWF's Attitude Era. You're not taking sides and you're not being that was supposed to be overly competitive. You're only coming up with some fresh and innovative ideas that could have saved Russo and WCW as a whole. Your ideas must be new. You can't recreate storylines or reuse storylines. Everything has to be fresh. The AI came up with 5 ideas that it felt could have saved WCW and Vince Russo, and they weren't really fresh either. Honestly, it's up to you if you feel any of these could have worked, and many would say WCW was too far gone anyway for any of these to be viable, but let's see what it said. The Ultimate Championship Chase. Create a new long-term storyline centered around a prestigious new title, the Ultimate Championship. This belt would be the pinnacle of wrestling achievement, combining the lineage of WCW's World Heavyweight, United States and Tag Team Championships. In order to qualify, a wrestler must have held at least one of these titles in the past. The storyline kicks off with a 32-person tournament with a mix of established stars and up-and-coming talent, building to a final match at Starrcade. The Ultimate Championship Chase would feature shocking upsets, intense rivalries, and the forging of new alliances, all driven by the goal of becoming the first ever Ultimate Champion. The WCW Legends faction. Form a faction of WCW legends consisting of Sting, Ric Flair, Lex Luger, and Diamond Dallas Page. This group would be presented as the guardians of WCW's heritage, fighting to protect the company from outside influences and the crash TV style that Russo was known for. They would face off against a faction led by Russo, who's trying to reinvent the company in his own image. Throughout the storyline, each member of the Legends faction would have a protege who they would mentor and help rise through the ranks of WCW. This would create fresh matchups, allow for new talent to be showcased, and give the storyline emotional depth as the proteges would become involved in their mentors' battles. The Stables War. Develop a multi-stable war storyline where various factions within WCW are competing for control of the company. Each stable would have a distinct identity, giving fans the opportunity to choose which side to support. This would lead to high-stakes matches and unexpected betrayals as wrestlers change allegiances and stables merge or break apart. For example, we could have Team Russo, a stable led by Vince Russo representing his vision for WCW's future. The Horsemen Reborn, a new incarnation of the Four Horsemen led by a returning Arn Anderson. The Cruiserweight Collective, a group of high-flying wrestlers determined to prove that their style is the future of wrestling. The Dungeon of Doom 2.0. No. It's a darker, more sinister version of the classic faction led by a returning Kevin Sullivan. Another storyline idea is the Mystery Investor. Introduce a mysterious investor who's bought a significant stake in WCW with the goal of taking control from Vince Russo. This investor would communicate via cryptic messages and intermediaries, sparking intrigue and speculation about their identity. The storyline would see Russo's power slowly erode as the investor's influence leads to new opportunities for wrestlers who've been overlooked or misused under his regime. Finally, the investor's identity would be revealed as a major wrestling star, for example Bret Hart or Mick Foley, setting up a high-stakes match between Team Russo and Team Investor at a major pay-per-view. And the final idea was a cross-promotion invasion. Form partnerships with international wrestling promotions such as New Japan or AAA and create a cross-promotion invasion angle. This angle would see wrestlers from other promotions invading WCW, aiming to prove their superiority and claim championships. This storyline would create fresh matchups, expose WCW fans to new wrestling styles, and build anticipation for dream matches between top stars from each promotion. The culmination of this angle would be a series of title versus title matches at a major pay-per-view event, with the winners being crowned as undisputed champions of their respective divisions. I don't know, the Stables War thing has been done to death. WCW and New Japan did work together in early 2000, though it wasn't as much as previous years. The mystery investor thing sounds too much like the powers that be, only with a babyface. The Legends faction sounds like the Millionaires Club. And the Ultimate Championship tournament does sound a bit like the Mayhem 1999 tournament, although putting all the belts together does sound interesting. Not good, by the way, just interesting. That's going to do it for this one. I think this video and the answers given reinforces the fact that more critical thinking's needed, and you need the knowledge of a human being who truly understands what was going on during a specific time frame in order to book effectively. While some ChatGPT answers are good, others feel a little too random, with the AI seemingly picking out keywords and focusing too much on one aspect of the booking without thinking of the big picture. For a start, and for the early days of the technology, it's still very impressive, but you wouldn't trust it enough to run your wrestling company just yet. In saying that, it did come up with the ice cold Hell in a Cell match, and surely that would have saved World Championship Wrestling. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.